Okay, I think we're live.
Oh, and we're live. Welcome to Hold the Line, a call to action collaboration between the Florida Democratic Party and the Texas Democrats. I'm Joe Carducci, and I'm joined by my partner in crime, Sam Schwartz. And we are here to draw attention to what is happening in the state of Florida. And you may think you live in another state that this doesn't impact you, but I promise you that it does, and it very much can. So no matter where you are, this is something you want to pay attention to, because here's what's going on in Florida. Florida Republicans want to draw new congressional maps, even though they were just finalized in 2022. Normally, states draw these maps every 10 years after the federal census to reflect population growth. The last census just happened in 2020, and that process is called redistricting. Like, we talk about these words, redistricting, it's like, what is that? I don't exactly know, but it's okay if you don't. We're here to kind of walk you through it and explain it, because the Florida Democrats, along with the Florida Republicans and the Texas Republicans, are up to some shenanigans related to redistricting, because this is not normal. It's a waste of taxpayer money and a distraction from what really matters: making life more affordable for everyday Floridians, everyday Texans, everyday Americans. Housing, groceries, insurance, healthcare, we all know that it's all too expensive. And instead of helping us, Republicans are busy trying to rig the rules to help Donald Trump stay in power. They know that what they're doing is unpopular. They know that they're not helping everyday average Americans. And they know that if they have fair maps, that none of this will be good for them in the midterms. So they're trying to rig the game, folks. And again, it's not normal. It's not okay. The way voting maps are drawn has a huge impact on who gets elected. In the past, politicians from both parties use a trick called gerrymandering. You probably heard that word too. And gerrymandering shaped districts to help themselves or their party stay in power. It gives some voters more influence and takes power away from others. In 2010, Floridians passed the Fair Districts Amendments to stop this. These rules say maps can't be drawn to favor a political party or a specific politician. Maps can't be drawn to reduce the voting power of racial or language minorities, and districts must be connected, have similar population sizes, and follow natural or city boundaries when possible. And even with these rules, the Florida legislature, run by Republicans, does not always follow them. They're not following them. And now they want to take away Black, Latino, and Jewish representation in Congress. Mid-decade maps could split up neighborhoods, weaken political influence, and make it harder to elect leaders who understand their community's needs. And Sam, this seems like stuff that people are like, I don't understand this. This doesn't impact me. I don't live in Florida. I don't live in Texas. But can you, first of all, welcome, and can you talk a little bit about why everybody all over this country should care about what Republicans are trying to do with redistricting?
Yeah, definitely. And first, I just want to say thank you all for watching this on a Tuesday night. I understand that many of you might have more fun things to do, but I promise you that this is something very important that you'll want to stick around and hear. We have a real problem here, and to what Joe was saying, we really have to address this as a party, and not even as a party, but as a country. And that problem is Ron DeSantis and Republicans in Texas, in Florida, in other red states, they're trying to draw new maps to explicitly silence millions of their own constituents. It's really a terrible thing. It's an undemocratic thing, and it's just not really what the essence of America is. They're literally just trying to silence their own constituents so that they can basically stay in power forever. And we're not going to stand for that. Florida, Texas Democrats are not going to stand for that. Today, you'll hear from electeds, you'll hear from activists, you'll hear from people who actually know and have ideas of how we are going to stop this undemocratic attack on all of our freedoms. And the silencing of millions of voices. And I just think it's important to frame this around, like, why are they doing this? Because that's the reason. That's something that I hear from a lot of my friends who are not really tuned into politics. They say, Sam, why are they doing this? Like, what's the reason? They can't really be that bad, right? And honestly, it's for something so stupid. Like, Trump's agenda is so outright unpopular. He comes into office, he wins the election on this huge promise of making everything great, and he's going to increase your grocery prices, and all of the jobs are going to go up. We're going to have the best jobs ever, and we're going to have the greatest economy of all time. And instead, what he actually does is he passes tariffs, blanket tariffs, which is just, if you don't know, it's just a huge tax on the American people. And he passes just recently a huge tax cut for billionaires that has caused everything to just become, everything actually has become more inflated in price. When we look at groceries, when we look at egg prices, when we look at gas prices and rent, like Americans cannot afford really anything right now. So Ron DeSantis's plan to address that is nothing. He just wants to arbitrarily draw up more maps that he doesn't have to cut out the voices of the voters who are not really in favor of what he's doing. So with that, I want to pass it to somebody who knows how Florida Democrats are actually going to combat this, and that is the chair of the Florida Democratic Party, Nikki Fried. Thank you so much for being here, Chair Fried. It's really great to hear from you, and we're so excited to hear what you have to say.
Well, first of all, hi, Jojo. Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for participating on tonight's very, very, very important call. And to all of our amazing speakers that are going to be coming on throughout the course of this evening, and most importantly to you all, because the only way that democracy works is by engagement from all walks of life, regardless of partisan affiliation, regardless of economic background, regardless. This is the moment where Americans need to hear real, truthful information about this moment and figure out how they can be participating in protecting our democracy. Because to have a vital democracy means things like having people that are in office that puts the people first. And that's the economics, is making sure that our cost of living, actually the costs go down, not up. And so tonight we're going to spotlight a very dangerous distraction that is happening. And you've heard now what Florida Republicans are eyeing, this mid-decade redistricting, borrowing the playbook from Texas. We all know this. If you live here in the state of Florida, we always have go back and forth as who is more diabolical, Abbott or DeSantis, and they both are doing races to the bottom. And this is no different. But this isn't about fair maps. In fact, from Jojo's comments that we passed in 2010, the Fair District Amendment here in the state of Florida by 63%. That is more than Ron DeSantis got when he got reelected or elected the first time. Any of our statewide, 63% shows that a vast majority of Floridians want to choose who their elected officials are, not the other way around. And so this isn't about having fair maps. It is purely a power play. And at the same time, Floridians are struggling with our skyrocketing bills, rent, insurance costs. And this is, make no mistake, this is all corruption. Instead of focusing on the unaffordability crisis and the inability for people to make ends meet, Republicans are scheming voters to make sure that the midterm elections is still in the Republican win column. This is absolutely unacceptable. And as Sam was saying, this is because the policies that are coming out of the Trump administration is making lives more difficult for every American, unless, of course, you are a billionaire of our country. The passing of the big, excuse my French, bullshit bill not only took away more than 2 million people's healthcare access. If we don't have Medicaid expansion next year, we're going to be in a situation where Florida alone is 50th in the nation when it comes to affordability for healthcare access. That is unacceptable. At the same time that we're cutting after school programs, cutting our educational system, and all the things that make our country move in the right direction. And so Trump is underwater on literally any avenue. We just saw Home Depot today made the announcement that they are increasing their costs. That is for construction of our homes and small pet projects in your household. That is what the tariffs are doing to everyday Americans. So tonight is a call to action. It is about organizing, uniting, and laying out a clear plan for Democrats to resist. You'll hear from an impressive lineup of both Texas and Florida fighters who are already on the front lines working together. We're following in the footsteps of Texas Democrats, who we have been so proud to watch exactly how this resistance has happened in Texas, which then, of course, prompted our friends out in California to act in this moment. But this is a time when Americans need to stand in this space and say, who are we? What are we going to fight for? And making sure that you all are aware of all the different ways for you to be involved in our fight back. Every single day, it is a fight on the ground, and we need each and every one of you. Voters are the ones who need to choose their elected officials, not the other way around. Tonight, we stand up for democracy and send a very clear warning. We've seen this coming, and we won't let democracy be drawn onto their terms. So again, thank you all of you for being part of this fight with us. We are never going to back down. And I know that each and every one of you are going to be in the trenches with us. So Sam, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for your words, Chair Fried. I just want to reiterate that this call is in collaboration with the Texas Democratic Party, who, as we've seen, have been really just outstanding in their fight against these unconstitutional, outright illegal redistricting attempts that Governor Greg Abbott is currently embarking on, and currently the Texas Republicans have one of the Democratic members locked up inside of the Texas state capitol, and she's doing media hits talking about how they will not let her leave unless she signs this permit or this like pass. It's just like it's literally like from like it sounds like it's from the Hunger Games, like, or from some dystopian novel, but unfortunately this is real life right now. So like, what can you as listeners do right now? You can text hold the line to 41011 to donate. You can take action by going to the link and calling your representatives, call your legislatures. That's the link right below on the ticker that's scrolling right under us, and you can tell them no new maps. And so with that, I want to pass it to someone who we all know very well. He's always on our Instagram feeds. Many of us get our daily news from him. He's a lawyer, political strategist, and digital journalist. Aaron Parnas, thank you so much for being here.
So excited to be here with you, Sam and Joe. We are really at an inflection point right now in our nation's history. And I think a lot of people don't recognize how big of a deal what is happening in Texas really is. Because when you talk about gerrymandering or redistricting, people don't really care about it because they don't know how it affects them. But here's the deal. Redistricting in Texas will impact everyone. It'll impact the policies that are enacted in Washington, and it'll impact the people that are sent there to do that policy. When you have something that's happening in Texas, when you have this gerrymandering occurring, what you're having is a race to the bottom. There was no reason for Texas Republicans to do what they're doing. The only reason was that Donald Trump wanted it. They're worried that they're going to lose the House of Representatives. Poll after poll has his approval ratings underwater, has House Republicans' approval ratings underwater. Their own base is clamoring for them to release the Epstein files, and they sent their House home for August recess instead of releasing the files. And so they're scared. They're worried. They want to know how to pick up seats, how to keep Mike Johnson in the speakership. And so what do? They do this mid-decade redistricting. And you know why? Because if Democrats take back the House in 2026, that effectively ends Donald Trump's term. He is a lame duck precedent. No matter how much he says he wants to run, he can't run for a third term, and he won't. So the last 2 years of his presidency will effectively be nuked if Democrats win the House of Representatives. And look, I'm going to be frank. Texas Republicans are likely going to pass these maps. They have the votes. The quorum is in effect. They're going to do it. But that means California Democrats will have to do the same. And right now, a lot of people are talking about what can we do as Americans, whether you're living in California or anywhere else, to ensure fair maps, to ensure that Democrats fight back. And the answer is there's a key election on November 4th. California voters will be going to the polls to decide whether or not their state should be redistricted as part of a mid-decade redistricting cycle. Unlike Texas, the California people, the residents, will decide in California. Texas, you have elected legislators deciding instead. And so you can make calls, you can make donations, you can send texts, you can fly out to California and organize, because that election, I know Sam and Joe know well, it's going to be a several $100 million election. It will be one of the most important elections of our lifetime. And if Democrats lose that election in California, well, then Republicans will be streamlined to take back the House of Representatives, and not just take it back, or not just keep it in 2026, but keep it in 2028 and potentially again in 2030 before the census is redone. So it's a really all hands on deck moment. People need to get out there. People need to make their voices heard and educate others on what's happening in California right now. So spread the word. I'm super excited to have been with you all tonight, and just keep it up, because if Texas is going to do it, then we need to fight back elsewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, Absolutely true. And the thing that comes back to me all the time, Sam, is that this isn't about what letters next to your name when you vote. If you want to have a voice, if you want to have a say, if you want your government to be representative of you and your interests, you want fair maps. You don't want this redistricting that only serves the few. You don't want your politicians deciding your voters. You want your voters deciding who your politicians are, and that is not a partisan issue. That's an issue that should be near and dear to all of our hearts, because it's supposed to be about we the people. And Republicans know that they can't win fair and square, so they're cheating us. They're cheating the American people. And what I have seen from the Texas Democrats has been an absolute inspiration in this moment. They've lit a fire in the bellies of a lot of people in this country right now, because what they have been doing is standing in the breach against these abuses of power from Republicans who want, like I said, to cheat their constituents, to cheat the American people, to cheat everyday hardworking folks out there of their voice, of their access to having the kind of power that we're supposed to have in this country. It's supposed to rest in our hands. And one of those Texas Democrats is here with us now. And I'm incredibly pleased to introduce the chair of the Democratic Party in Texas. This is Kendall Scudder. Hi, Kendall. How are you?
Well, hi there. Thanks so much for having me on. And thank you to the Florida Democratic Party for putting this on and letting me be a part of it. Really excited about the opportunity to talk to everybody today. Before I'm done talking, I'm going to give y'all a list of things that we need to make sure we're doing to fight back about this. But I want to make one thing very clear, is what this fight is actually about. This fight is about who your elected officials work for. Doesn't matter how you feel about these maps. It doesn't matter how you feel about redistricting. This is about who do the people that you elect work for. Let me give you a real plain explainer there. The Texas Democrats don't work for Donald Trump. We work for the people of Texas. Florida Democrats don't work for Donald Trump. They work for the people of Florida. Full stop. We don't let a bunch of billionaires in the Northeast tell us what we can and can't do. So when Donald Trump tries to avoid accountability for his terrible actions, for gutting Medicare and Medicaid, openly talking about privatizing Social Security, shutting down rural hospitals, making your energy costs more expensive, and passing the largest tax increase on working class families in my lifetime, then we have an obligation to meet this moment and hold him accountable if he refuses to come to the table to have it. What I see if these maps pass, as we talked about earlier, is I see about 5 or 6 more contested races in Texas where we're going to throw down and fight back and put every single one of those races in play. Because polls don't vote. Previous elections don't vote. People do. And I intend to make Texas do what might be the funniest thing in all map drawing history, and that's to tell Republicans to take these maps and shove it up their asses. Because the next election, we're going to be gaining seats in Texas, whether Republicans like it or not. Things that you can do to help us and the Florida Dems in this effort. Number one, you need to call your legislators. I know you're tired of hearing that, okay? But it's really important because these state legislators don't get a whole lot of traction on their phone lines. Makes a big difference. Don't just call your Democrats. Make sure you're calling your Republicans too, and letting them know how you feel about who they are choosing to work for instead of working for you. Here's number 2. The first time I ever ran for the state legislature, I was 26. I'm a kid that grew up in a barn, okay? But I got mad because there hadn't been a Democrat running in my district in 20 years. I ran and significantly overperformed a district where I didn't win, but a bunch of Democrats down ballot did. I think you need to consider filing for public office and making sure that people hear how angry you are about what they're doing. And maybe if they aren't willing to work for the people of Florida, maybe you should step up to work for the people of Florida. The next point that I'm going to make is you got to be vocal. We cannot go silent into this good night, and I am not going to let them bully me into submission. They sent my delegation to Chicago and had them in hiding for 2 weeks. I have a member of my delegation literally locked in and imprisoned against her will right now. But guess what? Texas Democrats are built different. And we're not going to just bend over backwards for somebody because they're threatening us. We're here to stand up and fight back. For 10 years, Democrats promised people in this country we were the great fighters to defend democracy, and now is the moment for you to meet it. And so what I need from you is to call legislators. I need you to file for office. I need you to be very strong and vocal against this adversarial government right now, because we will not live in tyranny. We will not live in a government that does not respect liberty. It's shocking to see a bunch of lovers of liberty right now cheering or imprisoning someone who didn't break any laws against their will. Okay, we're fighting for this republic, and we are not going to stop. Thank you, Florida Dems, for putting this on. We're standing with you in this fight in Texas. And you know what? We might lose some fights along the way, but I think in the long run, the scrappy underdogs with their backs against the wall tend to be the ones that win. So thank y'all for having me on today. I appreciate it. I'm going to kick it back over to Sam. Stay with us in this fight, y'all. This is the fight of our lives, and it's the one that counts.
Absolutely. I really couldn't have said it better myself. And honestly, you know, like the whole goal of like running for office and being a part of a state legislature, usually it's to help serve the people who elected you, to help better the lives of the people in your district, right? Like that's the goal, or at least we hope that's the goal, because right now, Florida Republicans, Texas Republicans, they're only doing this to literally help one person stay in power. And that person's name is Donald J. Trump. They don't care about, this is not for anyone except him. So like, let's just get that out of the way. Imagine if Florida Republicans and Texas Republicans actually put this much effort into helping you or your family be able to afford groceries or rent. Just a thought. With that, I have a great honor to introduce legislative activist Kristen Fulwiley. Kristen, thank you so very much for being here. It's great to see you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, for holding space this evening for this conversation. Again, my name is Kristen Fulwiley. So I've been working in Florida politics for over 10 years, but I currently serve as the executive director for Delta for Women in Action, which is the C4 political arm of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, one of the 9 Black Greek letter organizations and one of the nation's largest Black sorority. Instead is it limits our political work, and so we launched our C4 Delta for Women in Action in 2020 to further our political impact. I mentioned I've been working in Florida politics for over 10 years, including during the 2021 redistricting process, where we fought maps that undermined Black and Brown representation. What we saw then and what we're seeing now in Texas, and also what we're preparing for what is to come in Florida, are direct attacks on our democracy. We've had a few members of our sorority who were deeply impacted, and so we worked with a lot of the groups on the ground around advocacy and letting our voices be heard. And so how we organized during the Texas special session was we first met with local organizations, leaders, state legislators who were able to give direct direction based on what was happening on the ground. We hosted forums with legislators and community leaders to educate our members in the community. From there, we provided talking points, toolkits, encouraged our members to speak out at hearings, send emails, and make calls. You know, we talked a lot about speaking out, but oftentimes just having a presence speaks volumes. So attending those hearings where they often do these things where they assume the community and general public are not paying attention. So when we just have people take up space in those hearings, it definitely speaks and holds a lot of room. And then we also encouraged our members to financially support leaders who were on the front lines of the fight. We heard from our Texas legislators. We know that some of them were impacted financially, they were fined. And so while we can't directly give, we encourage people to give. And so while we are not exactly sure what is to come in Florida, I think it's safe to assume, honestly, the worst. We do need to be prepared. The good thing is that organizing in multiple states, but primarily here in Florida, we are uniquely positioned. There are multiple civic engagement tables and organizations that are ready to take action, who have been meeting and working together on the ground. And so I feel very confident that groups will take action here in Florida. But here are some ways that we can get involved and start preparing now for the advocacy work that is ahead. I will say they're forming, I believe the deadline was passed to be in consideration to be on the redistricting committee. I would say we can start by making sure that we're emailing our speaker and requesting that there is fair representation on the redistricting committee, particularly because we know Black and Brown voices or districts or areas are going to be impacted, making sure that we have those representatives on the committee who are being heard and respected. We need to listen and lean into our Democratic leaders. So we'll be leaning really heavily on our Democratic legislators to hear what's on the ground and taking direction from them. We need to organize and be prepared to sit in committee meetings. If you cannot visit in person, I know that's not an option for a lot of people. Just make sure that you're setting your reminder and you're watching online on the Florida channel so that you are staying in the loop of what's going on. Be prepared to speak out. So once those maps are confirmed and we see where we are going to be impacted, if you are directly impacted on those maps, please consider going on the record and letting your voice be heard in those ways. Be prepared to send emails, send calls. There are a lot of organizations who will provide talking points and scripts. So if you're unsure of messaging or you feel nervous about what to say, there is going to be plenty of resources. We just need people who are willing and available. And I will lastly, or one of the last things I will say is stay connected to trusted resources, wherever that is for you. Make sure that you're staying connected. There are plenty of outlets, whether it's FDP, the House and Senate Dems, individual leaders. Just please make sure that you're finding your trusted messengers to be able to stay informed on what is going on. And then lastly, if you are financially able, I know this is trying times for a lot of us, but please consider making a donation either to the Florida Democratic Party. We're still supporting our friends over in Texas, or to leaders directly or organizations that are on the ground. This is going to take a lot of effort. And so we will need, I know there's going to be a lot of financial support. I will say that we have a difficult road ahead. We also have the benefit of preparing, and we have strong networks on the ground here in Florida. So I'm confident that we'll be able to get the work done. But when it comes to the advocacy, we are going to need all hands on deck. And so whatever part of the work that you're able to take on, please consider doing that. Again, thank you to the Florida Democratic Party for holding space. I look forward to advocating alongside of you all this legislative session. Thank you. I'll pass it back over to you all.
Thank you so much, Kristen. I mean, Sam, that was incredible, because so often people say, what can I do? You know, like they're looking around and they're feeling helpless and hopeless and disheartened and disconnected because they don't feel like they can actually do anything that impacts change directly. But the thing is that you can. And in this moment, you know, right now, the story is about, you know, what's happening in Texas and what's going to be happening in Florida. But, you know, we know that this is not going to stop with Florida and Texas. And this is going to become a nationwide issue. We're looking at Indiana, Ohio, also Missouri, et cetera. And just want to add this, like, one sidebar. You don't cheat this hard to take votes and voters away if you know that what you're doing is right. And I tell you, we are incredibly honored to welcome our next guest who understands that this is a national fight. DNC Chair Ken Martin, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, and hello, Florida Dems. It is great to be with you again. I know it's under really difficult circumstances, but look, many of us were together earlier this year, right before those special congressional elections. And I remember at the time that people were saying to me, why are you going down there? It's a lost cause. Why would the DNC show up? Well, I'll tell you why. Because we put real pressure on the Republicans. We historically overperformed in those districts. We gained ground. And that's what has allowed you to register new voters, to mobilize new volunteers, and to get people engaged. That's how you do the groundwork to change states, to change districts, to change neighborhoods. And frankly, that's how you fight. And now, Florida, you are all fighting to hold the line, right now, to hold the line. And I'm so grateful that you put this call together and that all of you are in this fight. Earlier this month, of course, after Trump ordered Texas Republicans to rig their maps, I said something that's worth repeating here today. This isn't your grandfather's Democratic Party. The days of bringing a pencil to a knife fight are over. We're fighting fire with fire, and we're putting every single tool on the table. After all, the Constitution is very clear. Maps are drawn up every 10 years after the census. Trump has redrawn the lines mid-decade, and after pulling it off, likely in Texas, he's trying to export his power grab to Florida, to Indiana, to Ohio, to Missouri. Where he goes next is unknown, but very clear. Make no mistake. This is a racist, illegal, unconstitutional scheme to dilute the voting power of Black and brown Americans. We're going to fight it tooth and nail. It is unacceptable. And we have to use every single option at our disposal to fight back. Now, look, Republicans know they can't win on their merits. They have an unpopular president and an unpopular budget bill that they're desperate to spin. They just voted to literally kick more than 1.9 million Floridians off their health insurance. They voted to give the biggest tax handout to the ultra rich in history, and their trade war is jacking up costs for everyone in Florida and throughout this nation. And that's why they're willing to lie. That's why they're willing to cheat. And that's why they're ready to steal. As Democrats, we believe the voters should choose their leaders, not the other way around. We're not going to roll over while Republicans break the rules and try to rig the game. Families in Florida are struggling to go back to school shopping amid sky-high costs. You know, is Trump focused on bringing down costs on day one? Of course not. He's focused on spending taxpayer dollars to tilt elections in his favor and to cling to his razor-thin majority. Americans deserve fair maps. Texas Democrats, and I was proud to be the first person on the ground in Texas meeting with the House Democrats led by their fantastic leader, Gene Wu, and all the House Democrats. Those brave patriots, they lit the spark that has set off this national movement. Now, thanks to them, Democrats all over the country are picking up that torch. The fight now is here in Florida, and that fight is now. I am a firm believer that there's no such thing as a permanent red state in politics. If Republicans want a showdown, guess what? We're going to give them a damn showdown. And we will fight from Florida to California until we defeat this illegal, racist gerrymander. Every elected official I have spoken with throughout this country, from governors to members of Congress to local elected officials, understand the assignment. We have to stand up. We have to fight back. We have to use every single lever of power we have right now to slow down this march towards fascism. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you to Chair Fried and all of the Florida Democrats for rolling up your sleeves. You know, this is not only unacceptable and unconstitutional. We cannot allow this to stand. And let me leave you with this. For all those who ask me all the time, why would you do this? We cannot be the only party that has one hand tied behind our back that is playing by the rules anymore. Those old playbooks of yesteryear, those norms and those guardrails that used to protect all of us, those are gone. One party has already thrown that away, and we cannot be hamstrung here at this moment. Every option needs to be on the table because we are in the fight, not just for our party, not just for our values. We are in the fight for this country, for our democracy, and literally, it's not hyperbole, for this world. We've got to use every option we can. And I thank the Florida Dems for joining us in this fight. And we're going to stand with you as you fight this there in Florida. Thank you for having me on tonight.
Thank you so much, Chair Martin, for those really invigorating words. I just got to say, for all of you watching, do not allow yourself to have your voice be silenced by Greg Abbott, to have your voice silenced by Ron DeSantis, because if that happens, there's no telling what their next step might be, right? And so that's why it's so important for, if you're listening to this and you're getting, energized and you're also pissed off like I am, like Joe is, visit floridadems.org to actually take action, to sign the petition, to get involved, make your voice heard, because if you don't right now, you might not be able to make your voice heard in the future, because really their ultimate game plan here is to stay in power forever. We see Donald Trump walking European leaders around the White House, flashing Trump 2028 merch, like he's like a kid in a candy store. Hey, take my unconstitutional hat, my dictator hat. That'll be the end of a lot of things that we hold dear to our hearts. So please, again, go to visit floridadems.org to sign the petition, to get involved, and to make your voice heard. With that, I really have the great honor of introducing another fantastic guest to this webinar, and that is Dan Gelber, who is a former Florida state rep, state senator, and Miami Beach mayor. Dan, thank you so very much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for all you're doing, and thank everybody who's listening for what I think you're going to have to do because you care about your community, your state, and your nation. Now, I was in the House and the Senate of the state of Florida, but I was also the counsel to fair districts when we first put these things on the ballot. And I want to tell you, they were not passed. Those fair district amendments were not passed to help Democrats. They were passed to create fairness for everybody. The League of Women Voters, the NAACP, those were our clients. and we can win. We sued back then. Well, first, millions were spent against these amendments, and still 63% of Floridians said, no, we don't want partisan gerrymandering. A few years later, we sued the legislature and the governor on the maps they created. And because the Fair Districts Amendments says you cannot draw a district to favor or disfavor a party or an incumbent, we went to the courts and we won there. It was our maps that were put in, not the governor and not the legislature's map. So, you can win these battles. I believe that the Florida Fair Districts Amendments are still vital. They still exist, and they still demand that we not have partisan gerrymandering. I think the court in the last session decided to only talk about what's called the diminishment clause, but did not impact in any way the obligation of the legislature and the governor to not partisan gerrymander. When we sued last time, when we did the lawsuits in 2015, we actually had to struggle to prove why they were doing it. We don't have to struggle to prove that right now. We know why they're doing it because the president of the United States and the leader of the Republican Party has said why they want to do it. They want more Republicans. And they can't do that according to our Constitution. So we have the courts, but there's something else I think people have to understand. In the darkness, bad things can happen. I remember once I was in the legislature and I was in the office of the Republican chair of the Appropriations Committee. And I was there to sort of have a heart-to-heart with him about cuts to education and our healthcare in the state of Florida. And I said, how do you do this? How can you do this? And he pointed to the window in his office, which was the prime office the Republicans had. And I said, what's out there? And he said, go look. And it was the, sort of the concourse in the middle of the Capitol, if you've ever been there. And I said, there's nothing out there. And he said, exactly. There's nobody here. Nobody cares.
Wow.
We can do what we want. And the point is that when you show up at these places, when you let them know that there will be pain if they follow this road and they do things that residents and citizens and voters of all political stripes don't want them to do, there will be pain on election day, and you've got to show up. And that's the key. And one way you can show up is to go to floridadems.org, where you will see all sorts of ways you can help, because at the end of the day, the best antiseptic is light. And let people know you're watching, let them hear your voices, and let them know that you want them to abide by the Constitution of the state of Florida, which says as clearly as it can that districts cannot be drawn to favor a political party. And they cannot do it now in such a craven way, which is what I think they're thinking of doing. But frankly, there may be a way to convince them that this is not the smartest course for them, or more importantly, for the state of Florida. Thanks for having me, and thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. I mean, he's absolutely right, and the thing is, Sam, this isn't about one political party versus another. This is an attack on democracy. Democracy is a living, breathing thing, and it requires our participation. And I so often think, like I saw in the comments, apathy is really difficult, and it's hard to fight against. But I don't think you can be apathetic about someone trying to silence you, someone trying to muzzle you, someone putting their hand over your mouth and taking your power and your autonomy away. I think these are things that people understand on a fundamental level. And it's why 63% of Floridians have already spoken out on this issue and have already rejected this partisan redistricting and gerrymandering. So I just want to bring it full circle and bring it back to Chair Freed for some closing remarks. Thank you, Chair Freed, for all of this, for your consistent fight, determination, advocacy, persistence. Your voice is so critically important, and you are a constant inspiration. So I just wanted to thank you and pass it back to you for any closing remarks.
Well, first of all, thank you, Joe and Sam, for hosting tonight, and for all of you for staying on. You could be doing a whole lot of things this evening, but you decided to tune in to this very important conversation with the DNC, with Texas Democrats, and a shout out to my partner in crime out in Texas, Kendall. We have a lot of good trouble to get into the next few years, so excited to be in the trenches with you. But I think the conversation tonight is so important because we can't do this alone. We need you. So please go to floridadems.org, sign the petition, go on there to help make sure that we are holding the line, because this is about you. This is about democracy. This is about quality way of life. This is about reducing our cost of living. But we don't have people in Congress who understand the assignment that they're here to represent you, then we have lost democracy. And I think that what Dan's comments, closing out and the previous speaker was so on point, that these Republicans in Florida feel that they can get away with everything. They can build a $450 million detention center in the middle of the Everglades, putting American citizen, TPS recipients, DACA recipients, Visa card holders, families inside of Alcatraz, and now building a new detention center, all in the cloak of darkness, because the legislature has not allocated those resources. That is because of an emergency executive order that has been in place now since 2023. All of these things are happening, and we have to hold the Republicans accountable in this moment. And the only way that we are going to do that is to put the fear of God into them, that the people of our state, not just Republicans, independents, Democrats, are coming together and saying enough is enough. We want leaders to be standing up for our quality way of life, to make sure that our communities are safe, making sure that we can afford our property insurance, that we can afford to purchase a home, that we can afford our rent, we can afford our health care, that seniors have an ability to have a quality way of life when they've moved here or retired here in the state of Florida. To our veterans, Florida has 1.3 million veterans, one of the largest states with active military. And meanwhile, we're hearing from veterans all across our country that they can't get into the VA, they can't get their services, they can't see their doctors, their nurses, their healthcare access. And that is why it is important that we have a 2026 election that is based on the issues, not on this partisan drawing of the maps. And if you hear what Ron DeSantis says, and I'm going to curse for a second, so if you have an issue with cursing, but turn off for a second. But he's talking out of both of his asses when he is talking about maps. At one second he's talking about it's the population changes and the movements from 2020, but yet there's no data to support that. And that we need a new census. Oh, we can have it without the census, and we need another seat. I mean, they don't have an actual clear message, because when you're going into a situation with malice and with an intent to harm, then you have no good reasons. And so, but it's going to be on Florida Democrats and Floridians to stand up and say, we are not going to sit back. We are going to fight in this moment. We're going to be in the trenches every single day, but we need you. We need you making phone calls to your legislative leaders, to your legislators who are representing you, not necessarily the Democrats. They know where we are. The Republicans need to hear that if they do what they plan on doing, they are going to get out of office, because we are going to beat them in the polls, and we're going to beat them at the actual elections in 2026. But we have to put that pressure on them now. So I can't thank you all enough for being on here tonight. Know that this is not going to be the last time that we have these conversations, because the way the Republicans are moving through Florida, they not only want to create this special committee that we've seen the speaker engage in, but even doing a whole new map during the legislative session next year, which means that we're going to have to keep the pressure on between now and when they have the audacity to actually pass these maps next year. So stay tuned, stay informed, know that we are not going to roll over, that we're going to be in the trenches, that we are going to fight back, and we are going to bring fire with fire. But we can only do that with you, the people. So please make sure that you are signing the petitions, that you're going online, that you're participating, that you're calling your local state representatives and senators, and make sure that you tell them to hold the line. This is going to take all of us. Democracy in the state of Florida are worth fighting for. And so I can't thank you all enough for being able to participate in this conversation tonight. Thank you to all of our speakers. If you see, we're not laying down. We are going to fight back, and we're going to back down from this.
Yeah, and Chair Fruit, I really couldn't have said it better myself. I just want to close with this. Democrats tried to make this illegal, what Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott are trying to do right now. Democrats tried to make this illegal in 2021 when we tried to pass the For the People Act. It would have banned all redistricting, or it would have banned all gerrymandering. And every single Democrat voted for it. And shocker, every single Republican voted against it, and they blocked it because this is what they want. They want to be able to take the voices away from all of their constituents and stay in power forever, essentially, is what it comes down to. And so what you heard from all of our amazing speakers today is that these fights are going to be damn expensive. We're talking about in the hundreds of millions of dollars. That's unfortunately what it's going to take to defend democracy from the Republican Party, who are so keen on literally lighting it on fire. If you have the funds to spare to go and fuel this fight, I would recommend texting "Hold the Line" to 41011. And if you can donate to the Florida Democratic Party and the Texas Democrats, who are really going to be leading the charge in fighting this battle against illegal gerrymandering, illegal redistricting that the Republicans are wanting to do. So with that, thank you all for being here. Joe, do you have any closing statement?
Yeah, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for everybody in the chat. Thank you for all the incredible speakers. Thank you to the chairs of the Texas and Florida Democratic parties. I just want to close with this last thing that I tell my kids all the time and that I try to remember as often as possible. And that's the power of the people is much stronger than the people in power. And as long as we hold on to that and fight for that with everything we have, I believe that right will prevail. That's absolutely what I carry through me and embody, hopefully in calls to action like this. But thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sam. Let's get going. Fire with fire. Let's fight.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I'm ready.
Let's do this. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.